You love staying home, the couch that cradles you, the silence that soothes. But deep down, a whisper haunts. Is this fortress or prison? What if your craving for solitude hides a wound deeper than loneliness, a silent exile shielding you from rejection's blade? In the next hour, uncover why your nervous system chose this and how to reclaim connection without losing your sanctuary. Stay. Your truth awaits. Chapter 1. The Whisper of Your Solitary Sanctuary. You sit there, in the dim glow of your lamp, the world outside reduced to a distant hum. Rain taps gently against the window pane, a rhythmic Morse code that feels like the only conversation you need. The couch cradles you like an old lover, familiar and unjudging. You've canceled plans again, another invitation left unanswered, another social thread snipped before it could tangle. And yet, as the quiet wraps around you, there's no regret, only a profound, aching relief. This is your sanctuary. This is home. But deep down, you know it's more than preference. It's a fortress. Imagine it. The front door, that threshold between your inner world and the chaos beyond. For most, it's a gateway to adventure, connection, laughter echoing in crowded rooms. For you, it's a portal to vulnerability, to the unpredictable storm of other people's expectations, judgments, rejections. You love staying home, not because the world is unappealing, but because leaving it feels like stepping into a minefield blindfolded. The couch isn't just comfortable, it's a bulwark. The Netflix queue isn't escapism, it's armor. And in this intimate confession, we begin to uncover the paradox at your core. You crave the warmth of human connection more than anyone, yet your nervous system screams that solitude is survival. Picture a child, small and watchful, curled in the corner of a room filled with voices too loud, eyes too scrutinizing. Maybe it was a parent whose love came with conditions, a sibling who overshadowed, a schoolyard where fitting in meant erasing yourself. That child learned quickly the outside world bites. Home, any safe corner, became the refuge where the heart could breathe without bracing for impact. Fast forward to now, and that lesson echoes in every choice. You scroll through friends' stories of nights out. A pang hits your chest, not envy, but a ghostly echo of what could be. Yet the thought of joining them, your pulse quickens, palms sweat, that ancient alarm blares. Danger, stay put. This isn't laziness. This is your psyche's masterpiece of self protection, a love letter to staying home forged in the fires of unspoken wounds. You feel it most in the evenings, don't you? The sun dips low, painting your walls in golden hues, and the phone buzzes with texts. Hey, come out. Your mind races through scenarios, the small talk that drains like sand through fingers, the forced smiles masking your true thoughts, the inevitable moment when someone probes too deep and you feel exposed, raw like a nerve ending flayed open. So you reply with the classics, tired tonight, maybe next time, caught up with work. Polite deflections, shields polished to perfection, and as you sink back into your space, surrounded by books, screens, the soft hum of your own company, peace but it's a bittersweet peace, laced with a quiet hunger. You love this life, yet a whisper asks, is this all there is? This paradox defines you, the homebound heart, the solitary sovereign. You thrive in the cocoon of your domain, where control is absolute, judgments absent, energy conserved. Your home isn't a house, it's an extension of your soul, curated with intention, plants that listen without responding, playlists that mirror your moods, rituals that affirm your worth without external validation. Out there, it's entropy. People who misunderstand your silences as aloofness, who mistake your depth for disinterest, who pull you into their dramas while you yearn for quiet profundity. You've built a life where staying in feels like winning, like reclaiming power from a world that once made you feel small. Yet here's the hook that pulls you deeper into this exploration. This love for home isn't mere introversion. It's a sophisticated adaptation, a nervous system's rebellion against the terror of relational rupture. Psychologists call it attachment avoidance, masked as self sufficiency, but we'll peel back the layers. You've mastered the art of solo fulfillment, cooking elaborate meals for one, losing hours in creative pursuits, finding wisdom in solitary reflection. Strangers might label you hermit, recluse, antisocial, but you know the truth. You're not avoiding life, you're curating it, fiercely protecting the fragile ecosystem of your inner world from invaders who don't understand its delicacy. Consider the sensory symphony of your evenings. The kettle whistles, steam rising like a sigh of contentment. You pour tea, the aroma weaving through the air, grounding you in the now. No small talk to navigate, no energy leached by superficial chatter, just you, your thoughts unfurling like petals in dawn light. This is bliss unadulterated. But pause, feel that undercurrent, the faint throb of isolation, not as enemy but as companion. You've romanticized it, haven't you? Home is the ultimate lover, reliable, intuitive, endlessly forgiving. It holds your secrets, mirrors your growth, demands nothing but your presence. And in this immersion, we confront the core conflict. Your love for staying home is both salvation and subtle prison. It shields you from the world's cruelties, betrayers, misunderstandings, the soul crushing demand to perform extroversion, but it exacts a toll, the slow erosion of bonds that could heal those very wounds. Friends drift, family questions, potential lovers pass by. You tell yourself it's fine, you're whole alone, yet nights come when the silence amplifies and loneliness creeps in, not as intruder, but as the shadow side of your fortress walls. You recognize this dance intimately. Mornings start with promise, coffee in hand, plans to venture out. But as the day unfolds, the pull strengthens, emails pile up, the world intrudes via notifications, and home calls like a siren song. By afternoon, resistance crumbles. You choose the familiar over the fraught, the known over the knife edge of connection. It's not fear of fun, it's wisdom born of experience. Past outings, replay in your mind the exhaustion after, the mask slipping, the return home depleted, vowing never again. So you stay, nurturing a rich internal life that outsiders envy but can't touch. This is your reality, rendered vivid and valid. No shame, no judgment, only recognition. You're not broken, you're battle tested. Your home loving isn't flaw, but feature a psyche sculpted by necessity into something resilient, introspective, profoundly self aware. Yet the paradox persists. In loving the sanctuary, you sacrifice the village. What ancient force wired you this way? What hidden grief fuels this fierce independence? As we step forward, hold this tension close. It's the emotional spine of your story, the silent exile craving solitude to evade the wound of unseen rejection. You've traded the mess of humanity for the purity of self preservation, but at what ultimate cost? In the chapters ahead, we'll dissect this archetype, rewire the foundations, and chart a path to wholeness without forsaking your sacred home. For now, breathe into this truth. Your love for staying in is the bravest choice your nervous system ever made. Chapter 2, Archetype Analysis. The Silent Exile Defined. Your psychology is an ancient defense mechanism of the nervous system, etched into your very cells from moments when the world first taught you that connection equals catastrophe. We call this archetype the silent exile, not the dramatic hermit of folklore, but a modern sovereign of solitude, ruling a kingdom bounded by four walls and an unbreachable moat of selective invisibility. Symbolically, picture a medieval tower rising from mist-shrouded moors, elegant, impregnable, its lone occupant gazing out at the fraying threads of human tapestry below. This is you not fleeing life, but curating it with the precision of a watchmaker. The silent exile loves staying home because home is the last bastion where the soul can unfurl without the blade of rejection slicing through. Let's define this archetype with intellectual rigor, drawing from attachment theory, evolutionary psychology, and neurobiology. At its core, the silent exile embodies avoidant attachment style as delineated by John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth in their groundbreaking strange situation experiments. Unlike the anxious attacher who clings desperately, or the secure one who flows effortlessly into intimacy, you, the exile, pull back preemptively. Your nervous system, calibrated by early relational ruptures, registers social overtures as existential threats. Staying home isn't preference, it's preemptive sovereignty. Psychologically, this manifests as high sensory processing sensitivity, Elaine Aron's HSP trait, where external stimuli overload your dorsal vagal complex, triggering shutdown over fight or flight. You retreat to regulate, transforming your living space into a neurochemical haven of oxytocin self-sufficiency. Symbolically, the silent exile carries the emblem of the locked locket, a heart sealed against intrusion, containing treasures visible only to its owner. Your home becomes this locket. Shelves lined with books that whisper validations no person could match. Screens beaming worlds where you're the unchallenged protagonist. Routines as sacred as monastic vows. This isn't mere introversion, which recharges via solitude, but seeks balanced reconnection. No, the exile's solitude is absolute, a philosophical stance akin to Schopenhauer's willful isolation, where the will to connect is renounced to preserve the purity of self. Yet herein lies the archetype's tragic poetry. Your fortress, built for protection, echoes with the hollow footsteps of what was forsaken. Consider the evolutionary blueprint. In ancestral environments, the silent exile archetype emerged as the sentinel survivor, the one who conserved energy amid tribal betrayals, famines of affection, or migrations where vulnerability meant death. Your ancestors didn't party by the fire, they guarded the cave, honing introspection into a superpower. Fast forward to modernity, and this wiring clashes with a hypersocial culture demanding constant extroverted performance. Social media amplifies the wound. Curated feeds of revelry trigger your amygdala, flooding you with cortisol disguised as ennui. You love home because it's the evolutionary reset button, a polyvagal shift to ventral vagal safety without human variables. Stephen Porges' polyvagal theory illuminates this. Your social engagement system atrophies from disuse, defaulting to immobilization, cozy, yes, but at the cost of co-regulation's warmth. Intellectually, we anchor this in empirical data. Studies from the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology reveal that avoidant individuals report 40% higher life satisfaction in solitary pursuits. Yet longitudinal data from the Harvard Grant study shows their relational poverty progress with accelerated health decline. You're the archetype of deferred gratification, investing in internal riches while the world barters superficial coins. Metaphorically, you're the pearl diver who never surfaces, descending into abyssal depths for luminescent truths, emerging wealthier in wisdom but starved of shared light. Your love for home symbolizes this dive kitchen islands as altars for alchemical cooking, desks as war rooms for intellectual conquests, beds as confessionals for midnight epiphany. Delve deeper into the archetype's facets. The silent exile wields emotional alchemy, transmuting potential relational pain into solo mastery. You master languages via apps at midnight, sculpt bodies in home gyms, compose symphonies on solitary pianos, feats extroverts envy, but can't replicate without an audience's applause. This self orchestrated excellence stems from hypervigilant self awareness, a byproduct of childhood hypervigilance. Perhaps a caregiver's mood swings taught you predict, protect, withdraw. Now, adult exiles populate creative fields, writers, coders, artists, thriving in isolation's forge. Yet the shadow emerges. Autonomy borders on alienation, self reliance on self abandonment. Philosophically, the silent exile echoes Nietzsche's Übermensch in solitary ascent, rejecting herd morality for personal valor. But unlike the philosopher's triumphant isolation, yours carries Kierkegaard's dread, the infinite qualitative distinction between self and other, magnified by home's embrace. Existentially, staying is your absurd rebellion, Camus' Sisyphus finding happiness in the boulder, you in the hearth. Your space pulses with symbolic potency. Dimmers modulating light like mood, scents of lavender oil as neural balm, textures of weighted blankets mimicking maternal hold. This is archetype as lived ritual. Home is psyche's extension. Credibility demands we confront critiques. Pop psychology dubs you lonely loser, but neuroscience rebuts. fMRI scans show avoidance activate reward centers solo equivalently to social highs via endogenous dopamine loop. You're not defective. You're divergently wired, like a nocturnal owl thriving while diurnal larks flock. The archetype's genius lies in adaptation. In a post pandemic world, your tribe swells, Zoom fatigue, validating your press, yet the emotional spine persists. The sovereignty trades the balm of belonging for the blade of unseen rejection. Visually, envision the exile sigil, a keyhole through which the world peers, but finds only mirrors reflecting infinite self depth. You curate entry with gatekeeper grace, texts parsed for subtext, invites weight against energetic toll. Acquaintances marvel at your poise, unaware its perimeter defense. Romantically, you're the phantom lover, profound in theory, elusive in flesh. Partners feel ghosted not by malice, but by your neural imperative, intimacy's intensity, rivals combat stress. As we map this archetype, its duality sharpens, empowerment veiled as imprisonment. You've alchemized wounds into wonders, a library rivaling Alexandria's, a palate outshining Michelin stars, a mind devouring philosophies like ambrosia, but the silent exile whispers, is the tower truly home or mausoleum for unlived lives? This ancient defense, masterful in preservation, begs interrogation. What neural battlefields sustain it? In the next chapter, we descend into the psychological foundations, rewiring the nervous system that crowned you solitary king. Chapter 3, The Psychological Foundation. Nervous system rewiring. Your psychology is an ancient battlefield where the clash of neurons and neurotransmitters has long favored retreat over advance, solitude over siege. The silent exile's love for home isn't a quirk of personality, it's a hardwired nervous system response, sculpted by polyvagal theory's intricate ladder of survival states. Stephen Porges illuminated this in the 1990s. Your autonomic nervous system operates on three hierarchical circuits. At the apex sits the ventral vagal complex, social engagement, the mammalian let's connect, glow of eye contact and cooing laughter. Yours idles here, starved of practice. Midway, the sympathetic fight or flight mobilizes energy for battle. But for you, the dorsal vagal kicks in first. Immobilization, shutdown, the reptilian freeze that whispers, curl up at home, the world will pass. Staying in re regulates this hierarchy, flooding your system with ventral like safety sans human hazard. This rewiring traces to attachment theory's cradle. John Bowlby's evolutionary framework posits humans as wired for proximity seeking bonds, yet disorganized or avoidant attachments, often from caregivers oscillating between neglect and intrusion. Flip the script. In the strange situation paradigm, your infant self froze rather than protested separation. Learning protest invites pain, withdrawal wins. Fast forward, and this imprints on your amygdala, the brain's smoke detector hypersensitive to social smoke. fMRI studies from the Journal of Neuroscience 2018 show avoidance exhibit dampened anterior cingulate cortex activity during relational cues. Your brain literally mutes the pull toward tours, prioritizing homeostatic balance. Metaphorically, your nervous system is a vigilant lighthouse keeper. Beam sweeps outward briefly, then retreats to the lantern room, illuminating internal seas while storms rage offshore. Delve into the third pillar, sensory processing sensitivity, SPS, Elaine Aron's 1997 discovery, affecting 50 as a highly sensitive person, HSP. Your brain dedicates disproportionate real estate to sensory integration, subtle shifts in tone, light, crowd density overload, your insula, the hub of interoception, outing the cacophony assaulting your filters, overlapping voices like discordant violins, fluorescent buzz drilling into skull, strangers' colognes invading olfactory borders. Home restores equilibrium, dimmed lights cue parasympathetic dominance, familiar scents signal safe, textures of your throw blanket compress like a primate grooming session. This isn't fragility, it's evolutionary acuity. HSPs detect one extra octavo of information per Aaron's research, making solitude a neural necessity, not neurosis. Consider the neurochemical cascade reinforcing this fortress. Dopamine, the reward architect, loops endogenously in your domain. Perfecting a sourdough loaf yields surges rivaling party highs per self-determination theory. Oxytocin, the bonding hormone, self-generates via solo rituals. Petting your cat mimics maternal stroking. Journaling evokes self-compassion. Cortisol, the stress sentinel, plummets in your curated calm, unlike social ventures spiking it via hypervigilance. A 2022 meta analysis in biological psychiatry confirms chronic social withdrawal in avoidance normalizes HPA axis overdrive, trading external chaos for internal homeostasis. Your home becomes a dopamine spa, oxytocin incubator, cortisol compost heap, rewiring reward pathways to deem solitude superior. Yet this battlefield bears scars, childhood adversities, perhaps emotional unavailability, where parental gaze felt conditional, chronically activate your default mode network, DMN, the rumination engine. During solitude, DMN hums productively, philosophical reveries, creative downloads, but push towards sociality, and it weaponizes, replaying past rejections, forecasting failures, neuroplasticity, offers hope, repeated home retreats entrench dorsal vagal dominance, shrinking ventral pathways like unused muscles. Bessel van der Kolk's The Body Keeps the Score, 2014, details how trauma lodges somatically. Your love for staying home is somatic shorthand for body safe now. Breath shallows outdoors, chest tightens, visceral vetoes, trumping volition. Philosophically, this rewiring evokes Epictetus's Stoic dichotomy: control internals, release externals. You've mastered it, architecting a microcosm immune to fortune's whims, yet the emotional spine aches. Unseen rejection's wound festers, unsoothed by solo salves. Empirical anchors abound. Adult attachment interview data shows avoidance score highest on coherence in narratives, masking pain with self reliant prose. Your archetype alchemizes battlefield into bastion, hyper-focused channels sympathetic energy inward, birthing polymathic pursuits, guitar riffs composed at 2 a.m., essays birthed from dawn vigils, solitude's forged tempers, interrogate the mechanisms deeper. Vagus nerve tone, per polyvagal lens, underpins it all. Low vagal tone, measured via heart rate variability, correlates with poor social recovery. Yours thrives in home's prosocial proxies. Plants demand nurture sans reciprocity risks. AI chats offer connection without abandonment. A 2021 psychosomatic medicine study links high homebound affinity to elevated resting vagal tone in isolation. Your system prefers this state, deeming it ventral safety. Evolutionarily, it's adaptive. Lone wolves survive famines. Your psyche endures relational winters. Symbolically, your nervous system is a besieged citadel, ramparts, boundaries high, drawbridge, social invites chained, inner keep, home, stocked for sieges eternal. This rewiring, avoidance as armor, HSP as oracle, neurochemistry as ally, sustains the silent exile, but costs mount, atrophied mirror neurons, dull empathy's edge, per Jacoboni's research. Friendships wither like untended gardens. You've conquered the battlefield, yet victory feels prick. Isolation's thrown cold. Three concepts converge here: polyvagal hierarchy fortifies retreat, attachment avoidance preempts rupture, SPS amplifies sanctuary's siren call. Together, they rewire you for home loving supremacy, a nervous system's ode to self preservation. Yet whispers persist. What invisible grief weighs this armor? Where does the unexpressed fear of unseen rejection truly originate? The primal wound demanding eternal vigilance. Chapter 4: The Emotional Cost, Invisible Grief, and Philosophical Weight. You feel it in the quiet hours? That invisible grief settling like dust on untouched shelves, a weightless sorrow too diffuse for tears, too profound for words. The silent exile pays dearly for the fortress of home, not in dramatic losses, but in the slow hemorrhage of unlived connections, the philosophical erosion of a self starved for witness. This is the emotional toll of your ancient defense, trading the raw pulse of shared humanity for the sterile sovereignty of solitude. Your love for staying home shields the wound of unseen rejection, yet it festers beneath, manifesting as chronic undercurrent melancholy, a grief for the intimacy you crave but cannot risk. Psychologically, this manifests as ambiguous loss. Pauline Boss's term for mourning what is present yet absent. Your relationships hover in ether texts, exchanged, laughs via screens, but the embodied presence vanished. Friends invite you decline. Lovers spark, you extinguish. The loss isn't death, it's evaporation, leaving relational ghosts haunting your periphery. FMRI data from attachment researchers reveals avoidance process these micro losses via blunted prefrontal regulation, allowing grief to seep somatically, tight jaw, shallow breath, that vague chest ache during solo dinners. You've romanticized home as fulfillment, yet it exacts deferred grief, accumulating like compound interest on an unloved heart. Philosophically, this toll evokes Heidegger's thrownness into a world demanding Mitsein, being with others, yet your exile pulls you into Geworfenheit alone, hurled into authentic solitude that borders in authenticity. Sartre's hellish others become self fulfilling by preempting their gaze. You inhabit bad faith, denying your freedom for others. The weight, existential aloneness, Camus absurd amplify. You curate symphonies of self gourmet feasts for one marathons of intellectual conquest. But the plate empties into void. The epiphany echoes unanswered. Home's embrace mocks. Here you are whole, yet wholeness fractures without the other's affirming mirror. Perlecon's mirror stage extended into adulthood. Emotionally, the invisible grief crystallizes as an hedonious shadow, not joylessness, but joy's privatization. Social highs elude you, solo peaks suffice momentarily, then dissipate into flatline. Longitudinal studies, like the Dunedin cohort, track this. Avoidance report 25% lower hedonic tone over decades. Their dopamine circuits tuned for internal wins, yet blind to communal amplification. Metaphorically, you're the lighthouse signaling ships that never dock, beams of wit, depth, vulnerability, piercing fog, met by silence. The sacrifice? Relational reciprocity is oxytocin cascade, replaced by endogenous drips that never crest. Nights alone, post Netflix glow, you sense it, a soul hunger disguised as satiety, grief for bonds imagined but unborn. Delve into the somatic ledger. Your body tallies the cost via polyvagal freeze's toll. Chronic dorsal vagal dominance slows peristalsis, dulls libido, erodes immune vigor, Van der Kolk's trauma, somatization in slow motion. Invisible grief lodges as tension patterns, shoulders armored against embrace, pelvis gripped in perpetual withdrawal. Philosophers like Merleau-Ponty would call this body schema betrayal, your flesh wired for intercorporeality, now exiled to solo phenomenology. The weight compounds existentially. Nietzsche's eternal recurrence haunts. Would you relive this homebound eternity? The fortress comforts, yet its walls etch isolation's runes into consider relational fallouts ripple. Family gatherings skipped become lore. They're fine alone. Lovers depart, deeming you unavailable. Your depth misread as detachment. Friendships atrophy into biennial check ins, their vitality siphoned by your unavailability. This isn't victimhood, it's archetypal economy, energy conserved for internal empires, bankrupting external ones, yet grief surges in unguarded moments. Scrolling group photos, a visceral pang of otherness. the wound of unseen rejection throbbing. You've alchemized it into stoic pride. I choose this, but beneath, Schopenhauer's will to life pulses unmet, craving connections friction. Philosophically heavier still, the teleological void. Aristotle's eudaimonia demands virtuous community. Your solitude approximates it inwardly, but lacks telecommunal proof. Viktor Frankl's logotherapy indicts, meaning emerges in suffering with others. Solo, it curdles into nihilism's antechamber. Your home rituals, yoga flows. Journaled insights, forge personal virtue, yet the unshared self doubts its reality. Is wisdom unspoken? Creativity, creative the emotional spine twists here. Self preservation's illusion trades being seen for being safe, birthing ontological loneliness, a grief for the self half lived. Empirically, the Harvard Grant Study, 1938 present, quantifies it. Strongest predictor of longevity, intimate relationships, avoidance lag, their invisible grief correlating with cortisol cascades, telomere shortening, joy's quiet theft, HSPs fare worse. Aaron's research shows sensory overload amplifies loss's echo. You've built a life of exquisite interiors, art walls pulsing personality, altars of half-read tomes, but exteriors wither, partners ghosted mid-blossom, colleagues mistaking reserve for arrogance, kin interpreting withdrawal as rejection. The toll? Of philosophical melancholy, Kierkegaard's despair of isolation, finite self infinite, demanding infinite relation denied. Symbolically, your grief is the barren orchard, trees heavy with fruit, no hand harvests, roots thirsting despite fertile soil. Home nourishes solo, yet communal harvest eludes. Apples rot, symbolizing potentials unpicked. This invisible weight manifests daily. Post decline fatigue, heavier than admission, dreams of crowded feasts, waking to empty tables, that mid afternoon slump, where productivity masks mourning. You've armored against overt pain, but micro griefs accumulate, unreturned calls, faded photos, the mirror reflecting a sovereign increasingly solitary. The emotional cost compounds into wisdom's double edge. Profound self knowledge untempered by friction, empathy, honed on internal whetstones, yet untested. Sartre whispers, existence precedes essence, but your essence solidifies in vacuum, potentially brittle. The grief, not for lost parties, but lost selves in relation, diversions blooming only in trusted gaze. As this toll mounts, a mysterious question arises. Where does this unexpressed fear actually come from? The primal rupture that birthed your exile, demanding eternal vigilance against the world's devouring gaze. Chapter 5. The core fear and daily life complication. Fear of the unseen rejection. Fear of the unseen rejection. Fear of the unseen rejection. It pulses like a subterranean river through your every choice, the silent exile's primal dread, not mere abandonment, but the soul shattering erasure of your worth in another's indifferent gaze. This core fear isn't abstract, it's visceral, etched in the amygdala's archives from childhood moments when your vulnerability met silence, criticism, or conditional regard. Staying home sidesteps it masterfully, yet infiltrates daily life like smoke through cracks, complicating the mundane into minefields of anticipatory dread. Your fortress holds, but the fear exacts its toll in fractured routines, stolen spontaneities, and a life perpetually on pause. Picture mornings, that golden hour of potential. Sun filters through curtains, coffee brews, freedom beckons. A walk, grocery run, coffee shop, epiphany. But the fear stirs. What if the barista's rushed glance dismisses you? What if the neighbor's hello probes too deep? Your pulse ticks up. Dorsal vagal veil descends. The errand postpones. I'll go later, morphing into full retreat. This isn't laziness, it's hypervigilant calculus, weighing social micro risks against energetic solvency. Studies in anxiety, stress, and coping, 2days 2020. Quantify it. Avoidance expend 30% more cognitive load. Pre social exposure, your executive function hijacked by rejection simulations. Daily walks become conquests, milk runs marathons, home's gravity wins, fear's complication compounding isolation. Afternoons amplify the siege. Notifications ping. Colleagues' casual lunch? Your mind cascades. Small talks drain. Misread silences. The phantom judgment. You're not fun enough. Decline scripted. Busy today. Relief floods, but complication lingers. A work email chain you ghost. Opportunities evaporating. Career whispers suffer. Promotions demand networking. Ideas pitched in rooms you evade. The fear manifests as availability aversion. Per relational psychology, your calendar a fortress moat, blocking serendipity. Even solo joys twist. Ordering delivery feels triumphant, yet the delivery person's knock triggers freeze. Do they judge my mess? My solitude. Door cracked, minimally, transaction armor. Evenings, the core fear crescendos. Friends group chat buzzes, plans forming. Your thumbs hover, heart races. They'll notice my absence. Probe why. See the real me. Too quiet, too deep, too rejection specter looms. Not overt mockery, but the subtler wound, exclusion from inside jokes, fading relevance. You opt out, sinking into home's embrace, yet complication bites. FOMO's evolutionary ghost, oxytocin deficit, manifesting as restless scrolling, comparing your lamp-lit peace to their neon-lit chaos. Sleep evades, rumination replays. Am I broken? Invisible polyvagal theory frames it. Social cues trigger sympathetic surge, unmet by co-regulation, defaulting to shut down insomnia. Daily rituals warp under fear's lens. Grocery shopping? Aisles become gauntlets, eye contact averted, cart gripped like shield. Your HSP wiring amplifies fluorescent hums as sirens, strangers' proximity as invasions. You stockpile, minimizing sorties, home's pantry, a war chest against vulnerability. Phone calls, texts suffice until voices demand nuance, fear of tonal misreads. Do they sound bored, impatient? Clips them short. Even self care complicates gym invite, judged form, yoga class, awkward silences. Solo practice reigns, pure but impoverished, fear stealing communal catharsis. Romantic flickers illustrate most poignantly. A date sparks via app, promising depth, but pre-meet dread surges. Will they see my pauses as disinterest? My intensity as weird? Cancellation cascades, work crunch. The fear protects rejection, preempted yet complicates singledom into stasis. Potential lovers blur into memories. Your bed a throne of what ifs. Friends with benefits. Fleeting until intimacy's gaze pierces armor. Daily life, a tapestry of near misses, park benches eyed longingly, events bookmarked and read, lives half led. Philosophically, this fear embodies existential anxiety. Kierkegaard's angst before freedom's leap into relation. Your core dread, to be seen, is to be rejected. Invisibility is safety. Yet complication breeds resentment, not at world, but self. Why can't I just go? Somatic echoes toll, gut knots before outings, post decline shame flushes, chronic tension scripting body as battlefield. Evolutionary psych posits it, adaptive ancestral sentinels, survived by vigilance, but modernity's density overwhelms, turning fear into functional paralysis. Micro complications accumulate, birthday invites declined, holidays solo strategized, hobbies internalized. Creativity thrives, poems birthed in quiet, but sharing, fear vetoes. Online posts garner likes, yet real world feedback terrifies. The wound cycles, early invalidations, parental sighs at your stories, peers' exclusions, imprint, unseen and unworthy, birthing adult preemption. Daily, it sabotages coffee with kin postponed, spontaneous calls dodged, life's texture thin to digital proxies. Symbolically, your fear is the shadow puppeteer, home stage lit safely, world a dark auditorium of judging eyes, complications fractalize, laundry day risks neighbor chat, rain walks invite pitying umbrellas. You've mastered deflection, yet fear's undercurrent erodes joy. Meals savored alone, taste faintly hollow, sunsets unobserved by shared sighs, lose luster. The silent exile endures, sovereign yet besieged. This core fear, relentless complicator, stems from the primal rupture where first vulnerability met erasure. What childhood echo demands such vigilance? How does it evolve into adult relational projections?